Hi, and welcome to Wild Heart Woman podcast. I'm your host, Chrissy, Beth Hubbard, and this is episode 2 of the season 2 of my podcast. So thank you if you're joining me on YouTube and you're watching, or if you're listening on another platform. Really appreciate when you come along for this open-hearted conversation. I'll be really honest, that's normally how I am anyways, but I feel like I need to say I'm a little bit nervous. I've had a week of, I don't know if it was the full moon that we recently had or what was happening. I also had a birthday, which brings up, all the emotions and reflections on life. And I felt really vulnerable because I've been sharing on my platform and out in the world more of my offering, the Wild Heart Woman program, which is the course that came through that I created when I was pregnant with Cosmo. And I don't know, something happened the other day where I just woke up and I was like feeling so vulnerable, feeling like I didn't actually feel that good about my work or what I was offering, or like it wasn't unique enough. Like everybody's saying this, and how is mine different? And just a lot of like that negativity, that voice that can come through. I know that everyone can have this, but just it felt really strong for me in a way that I haven't had in a long time. Because I usually feel like I'm pretty confident about, what I'm doing in the world, who I am as a mother, as a woman. And for some reason, I think just sharing these things is really because they're such a big part of me, and that I feel really strongly and passionately about what it is that I've created, and also that it is connected to like the birth of my son and the pregnancy. It's like a vulnerable thing. It's really raw still. And since he's just 4 months now. And so I think that's what happened, just waking up and feeling super triggered in a way about sharing and putting things out there, and really being more loud and proud about things and about my offerings. And there was something about that was really took me by surprise. I wasn't expecting to, feel so vulnerable. And I spoke to it as the vulnerability hangover. I don't know if anyone's heard of that, or if anyone's felt that out there, where you do share a bit of yourself, or you share a story, or you share your work or your art or your offering or whatever it is, and then immediately after or the next day you wake up and you're like, ugh, you just feel just hungover, like, oh, I wish I'd never done that, or wish I could just take it all back and keep it close and stay safe. And I think that's where I feel like that's what the energy is. It's like I'm being more exposed. I'm exposing myself more, and I'm exposing a big part of myself. Things that we create are art. It's very even the way we live is art. So, like, if you are sharing things on social media, it can be one of those tricky things, that fine line of like, well, how much do I share, and what makes me actually feel like good? What makes me feel good about what I'm sharing, and what's the purpose of sharing? And is it just because it's my art and I love to share that? Or is it because I want to inspire someone? Or is it, there's just different reasons. And I guess we all have different levels or lines that we can and want to, cross, or want to, put a boundary there. And maybe I think in the work that I've been doing, and especially around this work of being a wild-hearted woman and being a woman that's really connected to her inner wisdom, a woman that's really on fire about her life and really staying in alignment with what she truly wants to, what she wants to embody, who she is, and how that reflects in our everyday life and also in our offerings. And because I'm putting it out there now, it's kind of like making me ask that question. And it's really asking me to be a bit more confident and more clear on all these things. And that can be triggering. And I've found it to be really eye-opening to see, how I quickly wanted to just, I think I said to Craig, like, okay, I think we should just take it all down. We don't need to do, anything. We don't need to offer it. I don't need to put it out there. Like, I don't need to. And it just made me laugh, because I'm like, oh, but this is what I'm sharing about. and I was going to say teaching, but it's more of a reminder. I'm not teaching. I don't think I'm just sharing in a way that hopefully through this program, if a woman does decide to come along and do the Wild Heart Woman program, it's to remind her of her own knowing and her own power and confidence, and how she's a portal for all of her creations that want to come through. And how funny was it that I immediately was like, oh, no, I'm scared. I want to stay safe. I don't want to put myself out there. Like, that's too scary. And I do feel like that's part of what this is for me as personally, to share that it's to bump up against that that comfort zone and be like, oh, do you really want to embody this? Don't you love it when you have to learn your own lessons that you're sharing out into the world? Like, let's do more of this, and then the universe and life goes, okay, let's show you. You need to put that into action in your own life, and that's what this has been. I feel for me this last couple weeks. So I really appreciate you being here and listening. And for me, I find that sharing my heart is, I don't know, it's just a piece of me that I've always had. I've always been loving to share truthfully from my heart. I want to be the most authentic version of myself. And I think as an adult woman now, that comes from many years of not being my authentic self, and of very much shaping myself and molding myself into ways that fit into what was okay in my upbringing, such as the church. I was raised in the church, and there was very much a specific type of way that a woman should be. There's a lot of keeping it down and not being too loud, not being too weird, not being too different. It's very much like you're kind of being molded to be this certain way as you go out into the world. And then just being in that, want to be a good girl or a people pleaser, and kind of really working with that, kind of just undoing that as I got older and realized, oh wow, I'm really not living in alignment with what is true for me. And then figuring out what the heck is true for me. I don't even know, because I've spent, when you spend years doing it for other people, or watching what other people need from you, and making that the reason, making that how you live your life, why you do the things you do, how, finding your job, finding a partner, all these things. And I did all of it for so many years, not on my own wisdom. I was so disconnected from my own wisdom and my own internal nudges, those things that tell us, yes, go this way, or here, no, go over here, or say no to that. I didn't have that. I was so disconnected that I actually didn't know. And that still, now I think about that time, and I'm like, wow, I don't remember that feeling, that confusion that it would be, that, because I think when we are disconnected from our internal compass, it is a confusing way to live, because you're kind of always, you're always getting the nudges and the guides from your wisdom, but it's so turned down. The volume on that can be so turned down when you are living in that external noise world. Let me listen to the external voices and noise, and I'll use that as my compass and my guide. And so you continue to, and I think this happens, for us as children, especially when we go into the school system and we start to pretty quickly have to be told what to learn, what to do, how to act, all these things. And we start to turn off and turn down that volume on our very wise internal compass and our inner wisdom. And then so it makes sense that as we get older and we continue to do that, and I continued to do life that way, I'm a little lost when I started to really look at, wait, what is my truth? How do I live in alignment with my own heart and my own desires and dreams? And it's been the undoing of all of those years of feeling like I needed to look outside of myself, and also to get, acknowledgement from others, and feel like I'm more worthy when I get that acknowledgement from others, and kind of starting to really let go of that, which, I reckon for me, I'm still always in that undoing, and I'm still always unlearning that, and still always, and which is why I feel so passionate about sharing this with other people, with other women specifically, because I feel that it is sometimes when we've been raised that way, or when we've kind of like grown up that way, and we've been doing life that way for so many years, it can be really challenging to do it alone. And I'm not saying that there's so many beautiful people speaking to this in their own way, and so I'm just speaking to it in my way. And I know that there's women out there that will resonate with how I'm speaking to it, and that's who I'm talking to. And I feel like there's so many things that in this program that I've created that I hope that they're supportive for other women, because they've been really supportive for me. And it's one of those things that at the beginning of my sort of undoing journey of coming back to myself, I would have loved to have known about these things. I would have loved to have bumped into myself. I guess that's to summarize, why did I create the Wild Heart Woman program? It would be for my younger self. Like, I wish that she would have known all these things or had access to things like this. One of the first things that I bumped into that really helped me to kind of steer me towards this path of living more in alignment with myself and not the external world was my yoga journey. And so back in the day, I went to a hot yoga class, and this was back when I lived in Chicago, and I would have been in my 20s. And I found yoga, and it was the perfect yoga for me at the time, because I was very closed off to anything that seemed spiritual. And it was actually Bikram yoga, and it was like the least spiritual yoga class I'd ever been to. It was very like rigid, strong, very much just about the physical, not so much about, meditation, things like that. And it was probably exactly what I was meant to fall into at the time. But it's funny too that even that path was very rigid. Like that yoga, I don't know if anyone's ever tried it. It's like a certain amount of postures in a certain order every time, with one person saying the same dialogue mostly in each class. And it's like, how funny. It's like, that's the yoga that I found, after having a pretty, when it comes to like church and religion, there's like quite a set way of living. There's quite a set way of being, and you're kind of told how to be in a way. And that's kind of how this yoga was. So maybe it was the perfect kind of entry for me, if that makes sense, to go into the yoga world and to kind of move into more of a spiritual path that didn't have to do with religion, if you will, just because I think there is a distinction there, and a church energy. And so that was one of the first things that I bumped into that kind of started to steer me in the direction of my own wisdom and my own heart. And that, I did that for years, and I became a teacher, and then I taught yoga for so many years. And then it wasn't just the yoga. It was so much more. It was so many other things that helped me to come back to myself, and helped me to come back to my own knowing and to my own heart, and realizing that I didn't need to use another person, or I didn't need to use a specific prayer to access the higher power, to access my higher power, to access my guides, my angels, the unseen world, my divine, the divine that is within, but is also without us. Like, it's outside of us and in us, and it's all around. And I think that was the beauty of that slow undoing for me, beginning with my yoga journey, I reckon, is that I needed it to be slow, because I had so many years of conditioning, and it was never going to be a quick thing for me. It was never going to be overnight. And when I designed this program, I was pregnant with Cosmo, my second child, and it was quite a powerful, transformative pregnancy, as all pregnancies are. But for me, it was very fiery. It was very like, the first part wasn't. It was very like, I was sick and felt awful my first trimester. But as I started to move into the second and then even into the third trimester is when Wild Heart Woman program was birthed. And when I created it, I was in a very, as you are when you're about to birth a human, I was in that portal of creativity. I was very open. I felt like I was really channeling so many beautiful things, so many powerful things. And I could feel that it was time for me to share and put together something that would be hopefully inspiring and supportive for other women out in the world that were either women that are already on this path, because there's so many people out there that I know that are doing the same as me, and they just need that reminder or that little nudge. Women that are already on the path to coming back to their inner wisdom, and they just need a little bit more tools or other tools or just a different voice to kind of encourage and support them, like accountability, or women that are just ready. They're ready to step into it. They've felt misaligned and from their heart and disconnected from their inner wisdom. They've felt like they're living for other people. They've kind of it's like a feeling of, I guess you feel a bit lost. Like, you really feel lost about, what am I doing here and where am I going? And I'm not saying that I don't still sometimes feel lost, because often I think that is powerful, like to actually allow yourself to feel lost in the world is actually beautiful, because if we always feel like we have the answers and we always know, exactly what we're going to do next, then something to me is off. Because I often don't know what's going to happen next, but I have the trust in knowing that the right thing will come along. But when you're disconnected from your inner wisdom, you don't have that trust. In fact, you don't have that trust in yourself, because how could you when you've been relying on external wisdom, external advice, and other people's opinions and advice and knowledge to guide you? Then the self-trust is lost. So in the program, I speak to a lot of these topics that I'm already kind of generalizing about right now and summarizing. I've actually got my program open here, but I speak to the power of rituals and how, for me, that was actually probably one of the biggest tools and still is in my life, around just the everyday, the small, simple things every day. Those are the things that create the habits and the change and the self-trust and the inner knowing and the listening. So, that's a big topic for me, and that's a big one that I move deeply into in the Wild Heart Woman program, which is, I should say, is a self-paced course. I will have a live program coming out soon, but I'll be putting my self-paced course out there next week. I'm going to do a live workshop where I'm going to speak to a few of the things that have helped me in my journey and just speak a little bit more about my journey and my story, and a live Zoom, which is a workshop happening next Wednesday on the 31st. So I'm excited about that. And there I will put out my offer for the program. I speak to fertility as well. Like, this is a passion of mine as well, because I didn't meet my partner until later in life, and I started my fertility journey in my 40s, which, for some people they would say that's way too late, and the medical system definitely isn't a big fan and can, really, especially women that are like even 35 and over, really speak to it in such a negative way that it can deter women, or in their minds, the women think that there's something wrong with them, their fertility already, when actually they're fine. And they have lots of, the power to create life still. But so for me, I that was one of my biggest ways through the undoing, was through my starting my mothering journey later in life, because it was very much like, oh, are you really going to try now? Like, it's a bit late and it's dangerous, or it's not safe for the baby or you or whatever. And I birthed both of my babies in my 40s and had healthy pregnancies. And recently, one of the biggest things that happened for me, which was probably like one of those pinnacle moments for my inner wisdom, was that I birthed my son at home with just my partner and my daughter Birdie. And so I had a free birth, and the lead up to that was really big for me, like really being asked like, okay, do you really trust your body? Do you really trust that you and your baby can do this, that you are born to birth? And that was huge. Like, it was almost like the biggest, I don't want to say a test, because I don't feel like I was being tested, but it was like the biggest asking of myself, like really having to like put it into action by birthing my son at home, unsupported, without medical help. And it was the most powerful and psychedelic and amazing and transformative moment. So experience. It was more than a moment. It was an experience. And all up until that while that decision was kind of being made, and I could feel it, coming up for me that it was what I was leaning into, is when I was recording my videos and my content for the Wild Heart Woman program. So I do I speak to fertility as well, because that has been a big part of my journey. I speak to pregnancy loss in the program and fertility challenges. I speak to, I have a couple of practices about, there's a womb meditation in there and a few other practices that are included in the Wild Heart Woman program. And I also, I speak to so many things. There's like over 10 modules, so I won't go into each one. But I speak to, I dive into topics like nature and your cycle, acceptance as to where we are now and how that's a way forward, and the power of, having support and women around you that truly do support you and allow you to trust in your own self instead of trying to like guide you in a way. So this program is, it's kind of put into, I said, it is a self-paced program. So you can do it. You can do all the modules as quickly as you want, and there's over 10, or you can spread it out and just do certain ones or whatever you need to do. So that's the beauty of that. But it will be packaged in an email form where it's like over 6 weeks. So you get emails for 6 weeks from me about, just to remind you, okay, you can watch this module now, you can jump into this one, just to kind of keep you accountable, remind you that you did, you did say yes to it. And sometimes we need that little nudge throughout the days and the weeks. And it was created so that I could feel that I was meant to share a lot of what had been supportive for me as I moved through the can be somewhat challenging and shadowy, that shadow work of coming back to my inner wisdom. Like, there's a lot of unpacking and that's tricky. Like, I think sometimes we want, we're like, we want to do the thing. We want to be in alignment with our hearts. We want to be empowered. We want to embody this version of ourselves. But like, to be able to do that, we have to say yes to some of the shadow work. We have to say yes to seeing ourselves in the mirror and seeing that part of ourselves that we'd actually been avoiding. We've trying to avoid the yucky stuff, the stuff that's a bit harder and heavier. And so I'm encouraging you to look at where you're at in your life as a woman. And I'm big on knowing what are you in devotion to right now? Like, this is a conversation I want to have with people on the workshop. If they come to the live workshop, like, this is going to be one of the questions I ask. Like, yeah, what is your devotion to? Is it to yourself, your heart, your life, your living in alignment with the way that that is true for your values and who you want to embody, who you are? Or are you devoted to things that actually are stopping you from being that way, from embodying that woman? Are you devoted to things that you wouldn't necessarily say you're devoted to, but actually you are, because a lot of your energy goes there? And so that's the other question. It's like, well, where is my energy going? How do I know what I'm devoted to? Well, point to where your energy goes on a daily basis. So I won't go too deep into that now, but that's just some questions to ask yourself. Like, where you're at now, are you feeling like you're embodying that wise woman that is inside of all of us? Like, we all have the wise woman, even in our maidenhood. Like, even if you're a woman that hasn't gone into, or if maybe you don't know if you're going to, but if you haven't become a mother yet, there's still the wise woman inside of you. You still have the wisdom. You still have the knowing. And it's powerful, and I speak to this in the program. It is so powerful to have our guides, like to have our unseen guides that we speak to, because we all have them around us, and also to have our wise women in our community around us. And that might even be wise women that are no longer living. They're wise women that we read in books. They're wise women that are from our ancestors. They're women older than us in our community that we can look to. And so I think it's powerful, and I'm not saying we shouldn't have these, that we should definitely have those people, those women, and as our support and our helping us to kind of see what's possible. But even in our maidenhood, it's really powerful to keep coming back to what is right for us. Just because we're younger or we're not yet a mother doesn't mean that we don't have that knowing. And of course, for me and my personal journey, where I'm at now, I'm very much in the thick of the mothering journey, because I've got a beautiful, wild 4-year-old girl. She's amazing and wild. And I've got my 4-month-old son, which is still wild for me to say that I have 2 kids and I have a son, because it's still kind of new, right? And so I love to speak to the mothers. I love to speak to the women that are, hands are full, hearts are full, and time is limited. So that's why also with this course, I wanted to make it something packaged in a way where you could, some of the videos are like 20 to 30 minutes long, which can feel long, but some are shorter. Some of the practices are like 10 minutes or even, a little bit longer. But I tried to package it in a way to fit into your life, so that you could fit into your life this journey of coming back to yourself. I think it's always powerful when we're continuing to look inward, and the way forward is to go back inside. And we live in a society where I think we're so bombarded, especially now with having our phone and access to everything that's happening in the world. All the information that we could ever desire is like, we have instant access to it now, which can be really powerful and can be a positive thing. And yet I do feel that if we are having access to all this information and kind of constantly being bombarded by other voices and information, and we don't have the grounded connection to our inner wisdom in ourselves, then it's wild. Like, it's in a bad way. It's not wild in a good way. It's like, it's confusing. You can feel so lost and overwhelmed by being bombarded by this information without the anchor of your own heart. And so that's, I think right now, in this day and age and what we're living in right now in our society and how we operate, I think more than ever, it is key to have that knowing inside of yourself, that inner nudge, that yes, I want to go here. No, I don't want to go here. Yes, no, yes, no. And we always are getting that information sent to us. And so if we have that volume turned up on that voice, really, really strong and loud, I think that we're fine. Like, we can be bombarded. We can be being told what to do and how to live and how to parent and how to be a woman in this world, and we can still cruise through untouched in a way, because we've got that, almost like, it's like picturing, just get an image of like, a woman with like this beautiful field or this aura of light around her. That is her aura. That is our aura. That is not touched, because she feels confident in who she is. She stands strong in her own wisdom and her own knowing, as a woman, as a mother, as a being, as a creative being here. And so she's not, I guess, it's not that she can't get distracted, because of course we're going to get distracted along the way. That's part of life, and trying out different things. But she's very sure of what of knowing that it's inside of her. And it's not that she doesn't get lost. It's not that she doesn't get confused, or that it's not, challenging, or she doesn't get down or go up and down. But she, at the center, at the core of herself, she knows that she has that connection and she doesn't actually need to listen to all of the information being thrown at her. So that's a bit of a summary, maybe a longer summary, of Wild Heart Woman and the beautiful offering and powerful offering that I am putting out into the world for those women that are ready to have the support of the course and have my support and have that journey back, ready to step back in and take a little bit of a leap and come back into living life in that way that you know is possible. And that's kind of what I remember feeling when I was not actually in alignment and when I was really, I was doing the things, I was starting my yoga journey, I was kind of like seeing other people. I remember seeing other women, and that's sometimes what was so powerful, was hearing other women's stories or seeing other women living in this way that I knew was possible for me, but yet I didn't quite know how to get to that place. I was a little bit like, oh, how do I knew that I could do it. I knew it was possible. And that's the power of sharing our stories, right? Is then we know what's possible. We can see it in other women and other mothers. It's like, oh, that's possible with my family. That's possible with me, for me. And so that's also why I'm really passionate about sharing stories and why I love hosting women's circles, because that's just story medicine, right? Every time we come together, that's story medicine. And then we're all inspired. We're all reminded. And so I think that for me, it was like, I was like, oh, I know it's there. I know that I can live in this way, but how, what's the next step? So if you're someone that has felt a little bit like, you're seeing other women living, in this confident way, you're seeing other women doing things that you're like, it's like a mirror. You're like, I know that I can do that. I can feel that's in me. But how do I move into that next level, level is probably not the right word, but that next stage, that next phase? And I feel that my program is for you. If that's where you're at and you're kind of like, I'm ready, I'm standing on the edge, I'm like, okay, I'm just looking for that, I'm looking for my wings to fly. I'm looking for where I can jump and feel held and safe, even when I'm jumping and it's still scary. So definitely let me know if you are someone that's really looking and this has spoken to you in some way. Please reach out. You can find me on my Instagram or at my email, chrissy@shambhalafarm.com.au. And also, I will be doing my live workshop, which I will then offer a discounted offer on my Wild Heart Women program for like my launch, if you will. It's like kind of the first time I put it out there, and then I want to, those that are joining me on the live, I want to give a special discount to. So let me know if you're interested in learning more about that. And just always, even if it's not something that's available to you right now, or you're not feeling the energy of, moving into this program with me, that's perfect. That's fine. It's more about just looking at, how you're living your life and just taking that moment or two every day to just be with yourself, whether it be, a walk in nature or just sitting quietly in a space, if you can find quiet, if you're a mother, for 5 minutes, just try starting with 5 minutes and just tuning in. And then your inner wisdom and your voice will always come through if you give it space to. Because I think, honestly, we are always, our higher self, that wise self is always trying to talk to us and be like, hey, no, I know. Oh, no, maybe you don't need to listen to that person. Hey, I can tell you. But we often feel like we're too busy to connect, or we're too busy to sit quietly, or we're too busy. Yeah, so just a little nudge, if you need it, to remember that it's there and give yourself that time. Maybe even take some time today or tomorrow. Start your morning and let yourself sit with your beautiful voice and your beautiful heart and see what unfolds. And just start there. And then that can just only grow, right? If you give yourself 5 minutes a day of whatever practice or whatever ritual or whatever it is that helps you to come back to that quiet space of yourself. And I can only imagine the magic that will begin to shine through for you, and how you can see that, the effect of that, and how that kind of ripples out into your days, and then into your life, and then let it grow. Take more time. Do 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then to see, watch out. Watch out, world. Here comes that wild woman. And thank you for joining me and for listening to this episode of Wild Heart Woman. If you liked it, let me know. Maybe you can share it with any women friends that you know might benefit from listening. I really appreciate any feedback, any shares, any love. It's so nice to get the feedback. And wishing you lots of love. And I can't wait to continue to connect with you as we move through the different episodes of Wild Heart Woman. Have a beautiful day. Thanks again for being here.